Why did I build a life-size flak cannon? Let me explain. Let's jump to the beginning. In the early 90s, the term first-person shooter did not exist. We used to call them Doom clones. Even if Doom wasn't the first in the genre, it's clear why this game defined its foundations. Excellent Doom clones were made during this time, but none managed to take the genre in a new direction. Sometimes we got a completely different setting, sometimes a macho simulator with pulp-worthy crazy humor, and sometimes a comforting embrace of a beloved franchise. However, most Doom clones couldn't break away from the foundations, but from the second half of the decade, challengers emerged who successfully surpassed the great predecessor and the recently released Quake. Whether in storytelling, or fundamentally changing the gameplay basics, or emphasizing superior technology and less linear level design, they offered new experiences and proved that there was plenty of life after the id Software's heyday. But in one aspect, no one dared to stray far from the foundations laid by Doom: the weapon arsenal. In my previous video about the Quake's free rocket launcher, I explained why it's one of the most iconic weapons in the FPS genre. But it would be foolish not to state the obvious. There is another weapon which may be more defining and probably appears in even more games. The concept is simple: slow rate of fire, but in return we can surprise the bad guys with a shrapnel cloud affecting a larger area. The team at Epic Games developing Unreal didn't leave this out of their repertoire either, but they tried to put a twist on the usual formula. The first Unreal was a sci-fi game to the core, and the developers tried to match the weapon selection to this theme. They included as few classic bullet-using weapons as possible. Most weapons could shoot beams, energy or shards. In this creative frenzy, an industrial weapon that shoots shrapnel from a large cartridge, deadly at close range, fits perfectly. Familiar. It couldn't deny its origin, but in design it moved away from it. But these concepts were even more perfected in 1999 with the release of Unreal Tournament. The game that tried to surpass its competitors in every way. More and crazier weapons, secondary firing modes that further expanded the tactical repertoire of the weapons, many more game modes, a more colorful, vibrant sci-fi visual, facing words. Who wouldn't love to shoot spinning blades among their enemies? A slow-moving plasma orb that can be exploded to take everyone out. A toxic sticky slime ball that sticks to walls and harms those who come near. A remote-controlled mini thermonuclear warhead. But my personal favorite from the lineup was the Flak Cannon. In this game it got a more serious look, resembling an industrial device that could shred anyone to pieces. Yellow paint, worn heavily used look, dirt and instant death. A weapon unbeatable at close range, and at medium range it launched a grenade that covered everything in metal shards upon impact. If you saw this grin, you knew you were fucked. If that wasn't enough, the glowing shrapnel can bounce off the walls, allowing you to shoot an enemy in cover. The highly contrasting shards clearly show the direction and spread of your shot, providing instant visual feedback to help you improve your weapon use. If I hadn't spent so many hours playing this game, I would probably remember two things from it: the Facing Words map and its music, and the Flak Cannon. This naturally leads to the idea that it's time to make a life-size replica. Let's get to it. While in my previous Quake rocket launcher project I worked with a ready-made model, this was not an option now. Although the Flak Cannon has taken many forms over the years, my favorite was still the version from the first Unreal tournament. However, I couldn't find a model that I liked or that stayed true to the original. Speaking of fidelity, it's not easy to capture the details of a model from a 25 years old game. It used a very low poly model, but fortunately a bit more detail can be found if we examine the weapon from the first person perspective. Combining these, I assembled my own model, preserving the raw brutality of the original form, but adding one or two minor details that make the weapon feel a bit more real. The biggest challenge was getting the proportions right. Several times I ended up with a model that was either too stubby or too long. Even more problematic was finding the right size. I intended it to be shorter than the rocket launcher, but initially I ended up printing a heavily oversized model. After several iterations, I finally got the final size. The next step was to smooth out the printed model. Let's just say the printed parts came out smooth and ready for painting. I found a brilliant yellow base color just waiting to be completely ruined. Gradually all the main elements received their base color, so it was time to start dirtying them up. At this point, I'm only applying some shading. If you look closely, it gradually breaks up the uniform yellow surfaces, highlighting some less visible breaks on the surfaces. Besides shading, I'm applying a rusty brown base color on which the corroded surface effect will be built later. As you see, the weapon still looks pretty raw, so after the base coat is done, it's time to move on to detailing. Achieving a heavily used look will be crucial on this weapon. I usually start with the paint chipping on the edges. If you're interested in my other gamer theme builds or future weapon projects, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. If you have any weapon in mind which I should build, let me know in the comments. With this done, you probably know what comes next. First I highlight the edges, then work on the dirt smudge that accumulates at joints, followed by the rusty brown dirt. But this weapon couldn't be complete without the iconic grenade. The original features a cheerful little smiley face on the front of the grenade, but I wanted something different. Something I would really hate to see in-game. After finishing most of the painting, I realized that I forgot something important. I made a complete 3D model except for the small ammo indicator. After a quick fitting and printing, it was time to tackle the highly sophisticated electronics. However, after soldering and testing everything, it turned out that the LED display wouldn't fit in its place. Using precise methods, I quickly made room for it. Finally, all that was needed were a few additional elements, like the serial number on the side of the weapon, the dirty lubrication of the pistons, and the detailing of the rusty textures. With all this done, I consider the weapon finished. Let's see the results.
Dr. Freeman, I presume.
We'd better hurry.